Guys, you are looking fresh. You're looking ready for the new season. Look, with all due respect to Boomer, there's nothing wrong with the two-man show on occasion, right? Kind of keeps things light. You get lots of information out there. You don't have the host gumming things up all the time. I know the feeling. I like it.
Yeah, and it's good to get him a day off now and then. He needed a day off.
He's been putting in a lot of hours, Dregs.
Is this a hygiene issue or a mental health issue?
No, it's just he has to deal with us every day, and that is, I guess, a strong mental toll. We're sending him to Nashville to watch the music for a few days, so he'll be in great shape next week. He won't be miserable till like Wednesday because Monday's a holiday, so usually that one day bounce back.
So I hope you guys actually gave him some advice. Now, not this has ever happened. I mean, you got to be careful in Nashville, right? Yeah. I mean, it's a cool city, but they don't mess around there in terms of the police force. They tell you to move, you move. They tell you to get out, you get out. There's no lip, there's nothing. So I hope you gave Boomer that advice.
Rhett is a connoisseur, and I believe on the Tourism Tennessee payroll. So we've only heard Nashville stories from Rhett for a decade. We actually did the show down there for like 3 or 4 days. I want to say 8 years ago. And then Boom and I were down there for the draft 2 summers ago. So Boom's a vet now.
I would say this. I will not talk poorly about Nashville. Nashville in the 90s better than I do today.
Oh, see.
Interesting. Why? Too commercialized? Too much?
Yep. Major small town feel back then. It was you didn't have 7 floors of bar in each bar.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I'm with
this is like when the guy's like, I used to listen to that band 5 years ago and they're playing 50-person venues. They're sellouts now. Like, hey, popularity, what a curse to have, huh?
If someone's saying let's go to Nashville, I'm going. I'm just saying it had a little better feel.
So, Dregs, why not start there? We'll talk about the season. Nashville was a hell of a July 1. Barry Trotz has not waited long or hesitated to dip a toe in the water. He's jumped in with a cannonball. It's Stamkos, it's Marchessault on top of Brady Shea on the back end. They get the Saros extension. They move Askarov. Like, Trotz has got a plan here. What do you make of the new look Preds?
Well, I like it a lot. And, I like the comment coming out of Barry Trotz when he signed Marchessault and he signed Steven Stamkos. And, I think he described those two guys, specifically Stamkos, as a serial winner, right? He wants to surround himself and furnish this organization with serial winners. Well, with those two men, that's literally what you're getting. We had Stammer on the Rhett and Pinder podcast this week, and he's probably tired of talking about how difficult it was to leave Tampa Bay and the decision that he had to make. He acknowledged that he thought he was staying in Tampa Bay until July 1st, and then he wasn't. But he talked about the exchange that he had. He got a call from John Marchessault, and so neither one of those guys knew the other guy was signing in Nashville. And as he tells the story, Stamkos, he said he thought he was getting this call because Marchessault was pissed off that he was taking his money, he was taking his spot, and now a door had closed in Nashville. He said, no, I just signed in Nashville. So, and Ray actually made the point. So now you've got, assuming the lines stay this way, Bruno likes to get the blender out on occasion there in Nashville, but he's got Stamkos on one side, Marchessault on the other side, and Novak at center ice. Like, talk about the pressure on a centerman to disperse the puck and make sure that that's a good, crisp pass. So I think the Preds are going to be one of the more intriguing stories and one of the more entertaining teams to watch this year.
Okay, we won't bury the lead. Every expert out there has picked the Oilers. If you didn't, it's small outlier. So are you counting yourself amongst the believers or the there's 32 teams. The favorite every year often doesn't win. Where are you at here?
Yeah, no, I'm still a believer. I mean, look, I was also with the masses who counted them out in the Stanley Cup final when they're down 3-0 and, it looked like the Florida Panthers were just going to mop them up. And they found a way to persevere and push back and force that Game 7, as we know. Now, there's going to be trials and tribulations. You do not go wire to wire in today's era of the National Hockey League and the turnover that happens in the offseason. But it's also clear, and not just based on one game, I'm not putting Cody Ceci or Philip Broberg or Vincent Desharnais on the Mount Rushmore of NHL defensemen. I'm not. But those three men are better than what they brought in or what they have, with all due respect to those guys. So it's pretty obvious, I think, to Stan Bowman, not based on the one game, getting shellacked by the Winnipeg Jets, just through seeing training camp and the preseason go through that, they're going to have to address that. You know, the expectation is high on Darnell Nurse finding a way to be better than what he's been for a long time, frankly, maybe dating back to the point of contract extension, right? He has to be, otherwise I don't know that there's enough availability for the type of players that they need to fix what's broken on that back end. And, you know, that puts too much stress on Stu Skinner, or so it appears. And then by extension, that puts more stress on your offensive guys to try and outscore your mistakes. So there's a lot of work, but I'm still in the camp of believers that this is a team that is going to find its path. I
like their goalie. The forward group is very old, but very good. And the most important two players aren't old. But I'm still surprised that for the second year in a row, they continually prioritize scoring on a team that doesn't have an issue scoring. Like day one, Arvidsson, day one, Skinner. Like, what's the rush on the scoring where that's what put you into this offer sheet pickle? If you really had the foresight of the offer sheets potentially happening, would you not have moved CC early, kept Broberg, and then say, patience, if you're going to come to play for Win a Cup, wait 4 or 5 days. Let us sort this out. I mean, I don't know. And then you're hearing things about the president. A lot of his former clients are involved in all these deals. Is he trying to run the team out of Toronto? Like, I think this is a new regime. Make no mistake.
Yeah, no, I hear you. All I know about Jeff Jackson, that's who you're talking about, is that he was very complimentary and worked exceptionally well with Kenny Holland. I mean, Kenny Holland wouldn't have it any other way, right? He's not, he's been there, done that. Ownership likes to be heavily involved in Edmonton, which can be problematic. But that's also why you've got Jeff Jackson there. Paul Coffey is in tune with ownership, and maybe there's a buffer that's available there. But now you've got a new guy, and that's Stan Bowman, who also comes with a wealth of experience, and not the first rodeo for Stan Bowman when it comes with dealing as a manager with varying types of ownership and senior management. So yeah, we can step over the pieces that they brought in. I like Victor Arvidsson. I think he's a real good fit there. I think he's going to be an excellent, serviceable player, very versatile guy. I didn't quite understand Jeff Skinner. I think they're betting on this guy being motivated and the change of scenery and all of that. Didn't have a very good camp, didn't have very good preseason. He was briefly demoted to the third line, and then for game one, he was elevated back up into the first line. So what sort of consistent offense are you getting out of Jeff Skinner? And if you're not getting that, then with all due respect, you're not getting a whole heck of a lot, which I think kind of breathes into the point that you're making here, Pinder, in that they didn't address the issue, right? Yeah. The issue is on the back end. Maybe they feel confident though, fellas. Like, look, I look at Toronto as an example here. They've got all these guys like Hakanpää is eventually going to come off LTI. Timothy Liljegren can't make the lineup here. Like there are depth pieces with a lot of the cap stricken clubs in the NHL that could be available, probably through waivers, preferably if you're Edmonton through trade, just for cap reasons. So maybe that's what Bowman is thinking.
I just don't understand. It feels like it's been years they haven't addressed the defense issue. Like
it's fair.
No,
4 years. We keep saying they need to add D.
You need a defenseman. You need a defenseman. You need a defenseman. Well, they got Ekholm, I guess, which was a great move, but still not. You don't have a solid decor.
Like Ty Emberson's being asked to play top 4 minutes. He was what, like a 5-6-7 for San Jose last year.
Don't
and then
see it
next to Nurse, who you're saying needs to be better, but is another year into his 30s.
I don't know if he can.
And it was like that was the pair. To me, sorry, Dregs.
No, go ahead.
Everything switched in Dallas in that series when they brought Broberg in and separated CC Nurse. Those two together were a train wreck. And from that point forth in that series, the Oilers just took over. And Broberg had hardly played, but in the semifinals and the finals, on the biggest stage against the best teams in the league, he looked really good in top 4 minutes.
Yeah.
You had that guy.
Right. I get that. And that's where it was a weird strategy, and they were boxed in, right? From a cap perspective, they were boxed in. But doesn't it feel like teams always find a way? The creative teams always find. Look at the Vegas Golden Knights. And I'm not talking about the Robin Leonard situation. That's a completely different beast because both the PA and the National Hockey League agreed that extenuating personal circumstance, all of that. But this isn't the first time the Vegas Golden Knights have somehow had things work in their favor, right? Yeah. Toronto finds a way. Other clubs find a way. And to allow Philip Broberg to go and really get nothing back in return. I mean, it's offer sheet acceptance. It's not nothing, but in the moment, it doesn't help you. And to amplify the issues in Edmonton is pretty obvious. So you've got Darnell Nurse with that mammoth contract tied around your neck, and you've got Evan Bouchard coming right around the corner here, and he's got to be looking.
This summer.
Yeah, I mean, to extend Bouchard, are you kidding me? Like
11, 12?
It's got to be up there. Like, I mean, in the 10s, right? I mean, at least. So I mean, Stan Bowman is going to be he's going to need to be a surgeon, not just a capologist, to figure out this one. And that's down the road. That's not even talking about the issues that we've already addressed and what they're facing immediately to start the season.
Yeah, no first this year, but you just trade the next one, I suppose. I don't know.
I guess.
What else?
Well, I'm
not only too much Oilers.
I don't either. I'm actually interested out east there with Ottawa, Buffalo, and Detroit. Those teams that year after year you keep hearing, oh, we're going to finally get through. We're going to crack through. We're going to get playoffs. I mean, Buffalo's 13 or 14 years without. Who's improved the most there? Who's got the best chance?
I mean, Ottawa for me. And look, getting Linus Ullmark first via trade at the draft, I mean, that was business well done by Steve Staios. And then most recently, of course, this week's extension and getting him locked in for 5 years, including this year on the old contract. Right. Those goalies they shouldn't be available. In this case, he was available because Boston really didn't have a choice. And there was Ottawa to lay out the perfect plan. And I don't think that maybe hockey fans can appreciate what this means. Any general manager can make a trade as long as you've got the assets and you can make the finances of a deal work. But there was a gamble, a significant one in this, obviously, because Linus Ullmark is going into the final year of his contract. But Staios and management knew if they could just get in the ear of Linus Ullmark and show him what their plan is for the future in terms of the hockey club, and then more importantly, how good a community Ottawa is for his young family, then they've got a chance of forgetting about the goaltending woes. And man, did they look after that business in a short period of time. And then they did what they needed to do a year, 2 years ago, and that was get Brady some help, right? A young leader, Thomas Chabot, some help. A young leader, bring in Cousins and Jensen and David Perron, and before that it's Claude Giroux. There's still going to be some growing pains in Ottawa. I'm not painting the purest of rosy pictures, but as cliche as it is to say they're in the mix, I think it'd be a disappointment if they didn't knock somebody out in the East. I think Ottawa is most definitely ahead of Buffalo, and I could be easily convinced that they're ahead of the Detroit Red Wings right now as well.
Yeah, and it's that top four in the Atlantic that are so tough. I think we all see Washington as a fraud playoff team last year. The goal differential was good, but that was kind of the Jersey slot in my mind. Everything went wrong in Jersey and everything went right for Washington. So who are they going to take out? That'll be interesting to follow. And I'm with you on Ottawa. Like they just had really, 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 really subpar net minding. And all those young, great kids are another year older. Like Stutz had 90 points 2 years ago. He's not in decline. Like he'll bounce back from last year. Or 70. I'm off my toes, but we're talking about a young, talented team. What are you seeing out west? And we'll get to Calgary because I think if I look at the last 6-7 years, if expectations are high on this team, they didn't perform well. When people gave up on this team, they performed very well. And last year, the only year where I don't know there was consensus on expectation. Coming out of the Darryl thing, first year of Huska, there was very mixed bag. But generally speaking, whatever you think of the Flames, you've been wrong for the last 7-8 years if you're trying to predict at the beginning of the year.
Agreed. Yeah. Look, I think it's going to be a box of chocolates for the Calgary Flames this year. And I saw a clip that you guys ran yesterday or the day before Pinder, where you were talking about Anthony Mantha. And it wasn't just the Gordie Howe hat trick and his response and everything that he did. But imagine if he can throw a game like that at you every 5 games. And you don't have to include the fight. You just have to include the physicality, utilizing the size of the human being. If he can resurrect his game, then, man, does that give Craig Conroy options, because that's a piece that you probably want to keep. But given where the Calgary Flames are, and we know that there's still some internal pressure there to more embrace a renovation / rebuild, if you will. Well, you're getting quality assets if you get closer to that March 7th trade deadline. And Anthony Mantha is more of the player that we saw the other night, as opposed to the player that we've seen too much of in the last handful of years. So I use him as an example because that's just recency bias. I haven't talked to every general manager about the Calgary Flames, but I've talked to probably a half dozen or so, minimal. And it sounds like they have the Calgary Flames regarded higher than most media people. Their forward core is better. That's the consensus that I get. Yeah, you want to put that big question mark beside the goaltending. Vladar has been there long enough, but can he shoulder most of the load there? Wolf, an up-and-comer, most like him down the road, but is goaltending going to be a question back? All of that stuff. There aren't many teams in the NHL that don't have legitimate questions, but I think that Calgary is going to be better than most people expect. I think they're going to keep it interesting this year.
What about Andrei Kuzmenko? We sort of didn't know a ton about this player because Rick Tocchet didn't love him. He had this out of the blue 27-year-old rookie season from the K where he scores 39 goals. You're like, how is this player available? He comes over in the Lindholm deal as almost salary relief for the Canucks. And then once he gets through a virus and a nagging injury, he scored at almost a 40-goal pace in Calgary, which was what he did his first year in the league. So his non-Tocchet NHL career, he's basically a 40-goal guy. I mean, this is an interesting decision too. The other wrinkle, he'll be 30 on the first year of an extension if they do want to bring him back beyond this year.
Yeah. Well, automatically, when you look at the birth certificate, you're like, okay, well, we're not talking about a developing player here. We're talking about a grown man. We're talking about a guy who's got a pretty deep resume of playing pro hockey, who was a very impactful player in the KHL. But say what you want about all of that. Unless you've proven yourself in the National Hockey League, it's just a completely different beast. And players struggle when they come from Europe or they come from the Continental Hockey League, especially in this case when he arrives in Vancouver. And he was coveted. We know this. There were so many teams that were knocking on the door of Dan Milstein. Oh, no, we like him, we like him, we like him. Well, look, Patrick Galvin, when he was with the Pittsburgh Penguins, was all over Dan Milstein about Kuzmenko. And they chose Vancouver because of the opportunity. Well, it didn't work out because he didn't fit the eye of Rick Tocchet, as you presented here. But he's got nothing but opportunity with Calgary. So it's on Kuzmenko to prove that he is a legit top 6 NHL player. I just don't think we've seen the complete package yet in what he can bring. That doesn't mean it's a positive or a negative. I don't think we've seen enough yet of the sample size.
It is weird because you see, oh, geez, it's his 3rd year in the league, but it's almost 30. Like, it's a really unusual spot. And I agree. He basically got benched for 2/3 of a season. Like, we kind of know what he is, but it's a really not a huge sample, Rhett.
Wow. The upside's great. I think it's just an asset that Conroy's going to have. I mean, can it go south? Sure. I expect he's going to get tons of playing time. He's going to be a key on the power play. And whether you want to keep him or not is almost irrelevant. It's just going to be an asset that you sign or you trade.
It's Mantha, very Mantha vibes, right?
And that's where I think that Conroy's put himself in a position. I think the forwards are decent here. I have big questions. Goaltending, who knows? But there's no pressure. I was talking to guys at the rink. Kids were playing hockey. All the fans are happy with how things are. And now that they've had a good exhibition season, they're going to buy tickets and go watch. Like, it's not, they realize it's not a fire sale. It's going to be boring to be at the rink. No, they're going to compete. Whether they make the playoffs or not, who knows? And Conroy has a bunch of assets that if he chooses to sell, is going to restock that shelf real nice.
Even beyond 5 firsts they have for the next 3 years. And game of the year, potentially first game. The Vancouver, I don't know if you stayed up, Dregs. It was wild.
I did.
4-1, shut it off. I can't tell you how many buddies are like, yeah, I killed that after 20 minutes. Flames are going to be brutal this year. Like, what happened? Oh, my God. They came back.
Oh, my God. And I was one of those idiots that turned away because it's 4-1 start of the second period. I'm like, all right, well, this one's in hand, flipped over, watching the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers. And that was just a tire fire in Edmonton. And, it's like watching an accident, right? So you're intrigued by, okay, well, what's coming next here between the Jets and the Oilers? So I missed most of the comeback. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this is a tie hockey game. Now I literally had dozed off. And then I get an alert on my phone. So I quickly turned the TV back on to see the Zary goal, which was next level, by the way. And now, again, as an insider, you guys watch the game and you're looking at it and you're entertained by how things went. And you're individually looking at, well, how did it come together? And we're analyzing, okay, well, the goaltending in Vancouver wasn't good enough and the defensive structure couldn't withstand the push and all of that. No. I'm looking at it and I'm conjuring up thought bubbles over Rick Tockett's head as this thing is coming off the rails, and Adam Foote and Gonchar, and go down the list because they all collectively had a slow burn, because the one thing that Talk preaches, all coaches preach structure, but that's we just had the Kuzmenko conversation. Yeah. You either adhere to the way that you have to play within a team game or you don't play. That's just the way it works for the Rick Tocchet and the Vancouver Canucks. So it certainly elevated the angst around Thatcher Demko and when he might get back into the net. It did that for sure. Yeah,
She Loves is great in that series, but I mean, small samples. We said it yesterday. The top 100 goalies in the world all have 2-week stretches where they look unconscious, whether you're a number 1, 2, or 3, or you're a guy that came up from the A and earned yourself an NHL contract. Where are you at on Vancouver? I think they had to sort of patchwork over some losses in the offseason, but I really like Sprong. I really like the fit with DeBrusk there. And Forward and Desharnais give them the size they really coveted when they lost Zadorov.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed all the spots there. Dakota Joshua, I think we shouldn't overlook. He's coming off treatment for cancer. Doesn't sound like he's that far away. Kind of in line with Thatcher Demko. Earlier this week, I was told both guys could be back as early as the next 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes a player like that, who's just good in the room, great on the bench, add some spark to your lineup, can kind of be that glue guy that pulls it all together. Now, you know what you should get up the middle in Vancouver? JT Miller seems to be the head of the snake there. I'm with you. I think that DeBrusk was a nice add. I'm also of the belief, and I think Jeff O'Neill said this earlier, maybe in our season preview on Monday, Elias Pettersson, he could be a Hart Trophy candidate if he ever pulled it all together. Yeah. Like, you can see the tools there inside the toolbox, but whether it's his own lack of confidence or whatever it is, this guy he hasn't quite found that consistent swagger. But if he does, and they're counting that he will, I think the Vancouver Canucks could be a real threat in the West.
Okay, so I wrote it down a couple weeks ago. There are a huge list of star players that are a season away from free agency. And we've seen more and more of this, but you're always like, but that guy's going to resign. No way Stamkos is leaving Tampa anyway. They're going to get that done. We're starting to see guys, maybe he will leave. So Crosby got done. Marner, we don't need to introduce you to that storyline. It's probably all you've talked about for 4 months. Rantanen, apparently things got harder after the Draisaitl deal. I'd understand that. Ekblad, they'll get it done. Florida always does, but that's there. Besser, already the good start for a contract here. Marchand, we'd expect to get done. Ehlers is up. Verhaeghe gets done. Shea Theodore, 3 helpers opening night. Sam Bennett, his coming out to UFA season. And John Tavares, we understand where he's at in his career. I would expect hometown deals, but there's some intriguing names there. Yeah. Obviously, Marner's the hottest spot given the market and where you're at and how public that's been. But some of those other ones are intriguing. We don't
they're definitely intriguing. And you're right. There are varying layers here. Rantanen we expect to get done, but you almost have that human salary cap in Nate McKinnon, right? Who deserves every penny. Well, how does Colorado consider giving Mikko Rantanen more than that? And I'm not saying that's what he's asking for, but it's got to be damn close. It's got to be up there. And for anyone who doesn't watch the Colorado Avalanche closely, I mean, you can't be a hockey fan without acknowledging and appreciating the level of player that Mikko Rantanen is. Oh. He's up there with Leon Draisaitl for me, in terms of that sort of impact. So I can understand why he's going to dig in, and he should dig in. He deserves whatever he's going to get from the Avs. Sam Bennett, guys, is the most intriguing piece of all of this for me. And I think there's a couple of ways to look at this. I don't know if you caught the Florida-Boston game to start the season. It was awesome.
And he was right in the mix.
Like, oh my God, was he in the mix? Like on so many nights, he is the straw that stirs the drink there. I wouldn't say he's underrated, certainly not by Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers, but maybe by and large, maybe he's not the headline that Rantanen or Marner is, but I can tell you that there'll be 10 teams minimal, and probably 6 of those 10 are top Stanley Cup contending teams. This guy slides into the open market, he's getting paid. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brad Treliving, I think he'd move heaven and earth to get an opportunity to sign this guy. I really do. So, but to your point, Pinder, and not enough people are talking about this, in my opinion. General managers and clubs have gotten okay with being uncomfortable with big league negotiations like this. Because look, when you've got Austin Matthews, you've got Connor McDavid, you've got Nathan McKinnon, there's only so much cap that you can split up in the pie here. And if that player isn't willing to take your maximum offer, whatever that is, then you have to be okay with cutting bait and reinvesting those dollars. And that's clearly what Tampa Bay did. Stamkos won Stanley Cups and scored 40 times last year. And that guy didn't know he was leaving until July 1st. I mean, that is hardcore hockey decision-making right there. So I think the possibilities are going to be tremendous.
Well, hey, good catching up with you. I'm excited about the season, and Celebrini points. Bouchard has showed up very nice. Like it is. I know they're running the marketing campaign, and I might just be the hook in my mouth, but this is a really exciting time to watch this league. There's so many amazing young players, and never mind, you've got this Oilers storyline, all the free agents, the incredible kids jumping in, rookie. I'm excited to see Mishkov tomorrow here. It should be a fun one. We're excited to be back with you for another year. Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, I appreciate that. And you're right. It's not always about the stars, right? We've got some intriguing storylines across the board. So, let's see if all of the stuff that's keeping us interested at this point, a couple of games into the regular season, is still of value 10 games in. You know how things like to settle down in this league, and that's probably what's going to happen. Appreciate it, Dregs. We'll check in next week. Okay, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long-form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And, of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.